Hey there! Welcome to Unlimited Experience channel. Today we will be taking a deeper look at Proxmox, how to set up ZFS RAID for redundant storage and configure it for your setup. Set up a Proxmox backup for your virtual machines. Restoring backups without losing second attached virtual machine drive. Adding tags to your virtual machines. Creating LXC containers and templates for faster pre-configured deployment. I will also tell you about domain name, why you need it and what are the options. How to get a free domain name, what are the benefits and flaws for it. Why paid domain is better for virtualization server and how to get it. We'll show you an example from my setup, how the domain is linked and managed through CloudFlare. Let's get started. For this video, I added several virtual drives as you can see here under disks. To set up ZFS RAID, go to the ZFS tab under disks. Press on Create ZFS. Enter the name of your ZFS storage pool. Select all disks and set the RAID level to RAID Z. Press on Create. There are several RAID types to choose from. RAID Z is set up so you can lose up to one drive without losing any data. When one drive fails, you can just exchange the damaged drive for a new one. Be aware, for RAID Z to work, you have to have at least 3 drives. On the left side you can see the just created ZFS pool. Okay, now let's configure the ZFS RAID. ZFS RAID is system memory hungry. It's recommended to have at least 1 GB of RAM assigned to ZFS ARC cache per 1 TB of storage. In this example, we will reduce ARC cache to just 2 GB, so we have some RAM left for our virtual machines. ARC cache option is set in bytes, so you will need to use calculator to get the right number. Even your class nerd Jimmy would not be able to calculate this in his head. Select Proxmox server and open shell. Enter the fallowing command. Paste in this options line. All the commands used in this video will be in the description. To save, press Ctrl+X and then press Y. Now just enter this command to apply changes. After that's done, restart the Proxmox server. Now that's done, let's check if the ARC cache is set to the right size. Go to shell and enter this command. Okay, now let's start with the LXC containers. Wikipedia says that Linux containers LXC is an operating system level virtualization method for running multiple isolated Linux systems, containers, on a control host using a single Linux kernel. I would have said it differently, but how can I argue with almighty Wikipedia? In my personal experience, I use LXC containers for lower demanding applications, and standalone virtual machines for more secure and bigger applications like Nextcloud. The benefits of LXC containers are the blazing fast deployment and ultra-low idle system resource usage compared to standalone virtual machine. Let's set up your first LXC container. Go to Storage Drive, select CT Templates, then select Templates. There let's download Ubuntu 20 template. Now on top right corner, select, Create CT, Container Setup is similar to Virtual Machine Setup, with just few exceptions. Enter host name of the system and add password for root user. Under Templates tab, select Downloaded Ubuntu 20 image. Under Disks tab, select Storage, where you want the system disk to be located. In this example, I will set up LXC container on the newly created ZFS RAID storage. Under CPU, Set how many cores you want for the CT to have. Under Memory tab, you can set up how much RAM will the CT have and how many of Proxmox system swap space you would like to allow it to use. Swap space is only used when your virtual machine RAM usage is getting full. It's a virtual RAM storage that is placed on the Proxmox server's hard drive, so it's a lot slower than RAM, but it saves virtual machine from freezing, if for example, RAM usage spikes. Under Network tab, you have to set up a container IP address. If you have seen my previous video, you will know what to put here. In this example, I will keep setting IP the same as the ID of the container. Under DNS tab, you can leave it as it is. It will use Proxmox default setup values that we set while installing Proxmox server. Now just check over the setup. If everything is correct, press finish. Now let's talk about something that every system administrator loves to abuse. Backups. In this example, we will add another storage drive to the container. Go to the newly created LXC container, go under Resources tab. Add new mount point. Again, select Storage and under Path, set the mount path on the container, where the disk will be mounted to, then enter the size of the drive. For this example, unselect Backup option, as we do not want to back up large data storage, as it will take way too long. If you have storage space and want to be double sure about saving all your cute cat and puppy pictures or whatever you will be storing there, then you can keep the backup option on. When ready, press Create. Now let's start your new LXC. Login name is always root. As you can see, there is a new map called ZFS, that's the new drive we just added. With dfh command, we can see that the mounted drive shows up, all 50 gigabytes of it. Let me demonstrate one awesome thing about LXC containers. You do not have to restart or even edit disk partitions to increase disk size. Just go to Resources, select disk you want to increase in size, select Volume Action, Resize. Now just type in how much gigabytes of storage you want to increase. But be aware, you can always increase the size, but there are no option to reduce the disk size. Now when that's done, let's go back into the LXC console and run the same command dfh. Like magic, it's already increased to the new allocated size. You can also use this concept to change network IP address and other settings. Okay, now I will show you the magic of backups. Let's create a test file in the ZFS drive storage we added to this LXC. When that's done, go to Data Center, select Backup. Press on Add. Here we need to set up schedule, when the backups are made. You can have several backup schedules for separate virtual machines at the same time, so this is important. Under Mode, you can change how backup is created. We will leave it on Suspend, as it just suspends the virtual machine for a second, creates backup point and starts it back up, so basically there are no downtime for the virtual machine itself. Select what virtual machines you want to be backed up by this schedule. Under Retention tab, you can keep all backups if you have storage size of a Google data center, but I will set it up to keep last 3 backups. Under Notes, you can add something to differentiate from other scheduled backups if you want. Now let's run the backup job. If we now go under LXC Container and under Backups, we can see then there is a backup created there. By default, it backups system drive and any other drive that has a backup checked in the setup. OK, now under Backup tab, let's restore the virtual machine from it. Under Storage, make sure to check in what storage you want it to be restored to. It can be a different storage space. Now we get a warning, then all the mount volumes will be erased. That includes the attached ZFS storage drive, in what we made the test file. You can already guess where this is going. We will lose that test file as it's not backed up. Anyhow, press yes. Now let's start the LXC and check the ZFS storage. Yep, no surprise there, the test file is gone. OK, let's create a new test file so I can show you how you can restore VM without losing the files on the not backup drive. This is useful if you broke the system by entering wrong command, so the virtual machine is not working right, but all the data in the data drive is still there, and you want to restore the VM back to the point before you messed up. Stop the virtual machine. Now this will feel weird, but that's the official procedure of Proxmox. You can look it up, seriously. We now need to create another temporary backup container. Just follow along how I do it. Now when that's done, go to the LXC container with the data drive what we want to save from being deleted by restore process. Select that drive, go to Volume Actions and select Reassign Owner. Select the new temporary container we created and press Reassign Volume. Now all data that is not that drive is safely moved to the new temporary container. We can now restore this LXC without worrying about losing data. So go to Backups, select Backup and Restore. Now we can ignore the safety warning. When restore procedure is done, there will be a new drive added under Resources tab. Make sure you are in the correct container, and delete the drive that was created in restoring process. To delete it, select it, press on Detach, and then select Remove. Now just go back to temporary container, and reassign that data drive back to the rightful owner. Now let's start up LXC container and check if the test file is still there. Would you look at that, it worked, we still have the test file. Last step, let's delete that temporary container that we created. Okay, let's talk about tags. They are not very useful at beginning, but in later stages, When you have a lot of virtual machines, it's a nice feature, where you can search for specific tag, and all virtual machines with that tag will show up. Under each virtual machine, on top you can add tag. Now let's work on creating our own LXC container template. In this example, I will just update the container, so we have an updated container template. Start up the LXC container. Log in and execute command, apt update and then apt upgrade. When that's done, select Proxmox server, go to shell. If you did everything I showed you, with the same names of storages etc., then the location of template images will be in the same location as I have. If not, just follow the path and change in the command, storage drive name to your storage name. Then just execute this command. It creates a backup from the container image, and saves it under the cache location, where all the LXC containers are located in. Let's rename the new created template to something more understandable with this command. Now let's test the new template. Create another container but choose under template, our newly created template. Let's start it up and check if it works. Now let's see if it's updated with apt update. And it is. Cool, now you know on how to create container templates from existing configured or updated containers. I'm going to delete it as it's not necessary for now. Okay, I think it's enough of Proxmox for one day. Let's talk a bit about domain names. You can get a free subdomain name for each service that you would like to host on a Proxmox server. Yes, it's free in that way, but free subdomain has its own flaws. It's unreliable, harder to configure as you have to request new free subdomain name each time, need a fully signed certificate for it to be certified and so on. So I would suggest using free domain for like one website or system hosting, not for whole virtualization platform. Paid domain name is more suited for our needs. You get full domain name, on what we can create our own basically unlimited subdomains. You can manage it through CloudFlare, on the server side, assign it self-signed certificates and put all the domain under a CloudFlare free fully signed certificate. Also, CloudFlare Setup provides you with DDoS protection, free WAF firewall where you can set rules on what pages are accessible from what addresses etc. In this example, I will show you, where you can get the free subdomain and paid domain, what you have to do when you get a paid domain name, how to connect it to CloudFlare, and how to point your new domain to your server. Disclaimer, for this to work, your server network connection has to have a static IP address, as we are pointing domain name to a specific public static IP address. If the address changes, it will not be reachable. There are ways to work around dynamic IP with CloudFlare, and I will in future showcase that in another video, but not this time. Also, I'm showing where you can get the domain name etc., but I will showcase the working system from my own setup, as I'm not in need for another domain name. Everything I'm showing you here will be also in a documentation, check the link in the description. So, let's start with a free subdomain name. In this site, you can register and get a free subdomain that you can point to one specific system in your server. First, go to sign up, create an account for yourself. As I already have account here, I will log into it now. Then on left side, choose subdomains. There select domain from the list that you would like to get a subdomain from. If you select many more option, a new page will open where if you click on Shared Domain Registry, a huge list of free domains will show up. There just select one domain name that you like. When that's done, enter the subdomain name, what you want to have, change destination address to your server network static IP address, then try to understand that CAPTCHA and press save. And now you have a free subdomain that is pointing to your server. Okay, let's now talk about paid subdomain option. There are many sites where you can buy domain name from. In this example, I will showcase Namecheap. Just go to their site and search for a domain name that you would like to have. You will get a large list of domain names, some dirt cheap, some are closer to a carton of eggs price in USA. Choose what is closer to your price point and add it to cart. Then you will have to register, pay them your hard-earned money, and in no time, you will have your own domain name. After you have gotten the domain name, keep the page open, and in New tab, open up CloudFlare. Now, register a new account in CloudFlare. On top, click on Add Site. Enter your new domain name that you just bought. CloudFlare will now scan the domain name for existing DNS records. When that's done, on the bottom of the page, press on Continue. Now there will be some instructions from CloudFlare. Just follow them along. In short, you have to go back to Namecheap and change name servers of your domain name to CloudFlare name servers. After that's done, pause this video and wait up to 24 hours until the CloudFlare internal DNS records refreshes. Just check periodically CloudFlare page, until it shows you, then name servers have been changed. After that's done, you can forget about Namecheap page, as all further changes to domain will be managed through CloudFlare. Okay, let's take a look at my setup. Here is my CloudFlare dashboard. Let's open up my DNS records on the left side. Here is a list of all my DNS records. Most of it is blurred out to protect my own setup, but in short, to add a new subdomain, press on Add Record. Under Name, enter the subdomain name that you want, and IP4 address, the public static IP address of your server, and press Save. If everything is set up correctly, then if you open up the new subdomain.domain address, it should point to your server. But there is a catch. Your new domain is now pointing to your server, not to internal virtual servers. To fix that, you will need a reverse proxy. I will showcase my setup. I use Nginx Reverse Proxy Manager. I will showcase this amazing piece of software in a future video, but in short, it's just one point of entry to my whole Proxmox virtualization platform. Here we can take an external incoming request and point it to a specific virtual machine. In this example, I created test.wixp.org site. For now it does not point to anything, just my server, so it would not open up anything. So if we add proxy host, enter the new subdomain and point it, for example, to one of my internal virtual servers and port on which I have something hosted on, it should just work. So let's do that right now. Under Add Proxy Host, I need to enter full domain name, that will be proxied to internal virtual server. Enter the internal server IP address and port. It's a good practice to block common exploits and allow WebSockets support. There is also an option to cache assets, that can help with page load speed, but I'm not going to use it here. Under SSL, when you will create in future your own first domain name, you can just request a new certificate. Nginx Reverse Proxy Manager will request a self-signed certificate for you. I'm going to use my already created wildcard self-signed certificate. Now if I open up the newly created subdomain, it point to my internal apt cache service, as you can see here. And that's it for domain names. It's a bit complicated to set up the first time. You will have questions and feel free to ask them here, but before commenting, check out the link in description. There will be a detailed information on how to set domain name up, and if I will receive some questions, also the most asked questions will be added there with answers to them. Last thing in today's video would be the port forwarding. Even if you set up a domain name, have finished CloudFlare setup and even got ahead and set up your own Nginx Reverse Proxy Manager, it will still not work, as you have to open up a port in your switch or router for the system you want to reach from public network. If you have Nginx Reverse Proxy, then you would only need to open two ports to the public, the 80 and 443 that points to the Nginx Reverse Proxy Manager. For each router or switch, opening ports are different. Check its manual or just Google your router or switch name plus port forwarding. In all routers it's similar. It will require you to configure firewall NAT rule, to allow specific ports to go through. I will show you on how to do it on MikroTik router, as that's what I use. In MikroTik, there are two ways on how to open up a port. The simplest way is to select, Quick Set, scroll down until you see, Port Mapping, and there just add the 80 and 443 port for Nginx Reverse Proxy Manager internal IP address. Other option is to go to IP, then firewall and there select NAT. It's more complicated to set up a port forward here, as you can see. But there are more advanced options this way. So choose your poison. And that's it for today's video. It took a bit longer to make as I expected, but we somehow got there. Thank you for watching. Please leave comment below if you have some questions or suggestions, and subscribe, if you haven't already. Help me grow this channel so I can help out more people like you. See you in the next video.